Welcome back to Under Oath. Today we'll be talking to filmmaker and A-list acting coach Michelle Donner, talking about her new film, Miranda's Victim. Michelle, can you hear me?
I can hear you. How are you? Thank you for having me.
I'm good. This is kind of personal to me. Very rarely do I get to discuss the law in my in my show, but this covers one of the big ones.
Yeah, the Miranda ruling was a big law that protected civil rights liberties.
You know, a lot of people have no understanding what it really is. They think if you're not read your rights, you automatically walk, and they don't realize it just keeps statements out.
Yes, and it's an incredible thing. And this is a story that happened in 1963. This very brave young woman, Patricia Weir, had a terrific, crime that happened, and she sought justice. And this gave birth to what we know as being the Miranda rights. When people get arrested, they're read their rights.
Now, a lot of people know about what rights they get because of it, but they don't really understand the extremely heinous crime this was based on. This wasn't a theft. This wasn't a robbery. This was a rape.
Yes, this was this, very innocent girl who was 18 years old on a night in March 3rd, 1963 in Phoenix, Arizona, got off work and took the bus and was abducted at the bus stop and taken to the desert and raped at knife point. And by some miracle, this was a serial rapist. He he let her loose. And so she felt so wronged that she really had to seek justice. And not only once, but twice. She had to relive this nightmare over and over again. But this is a great story about justice, and it's got a huge twist at the end. So there's also karmic justice as it comes full circle. And I was fascinated by the story. First of all, of course, like everybody else, I didn't know the story. Nobody knew the story. And then to really find out about it and find out what happened and what happened to Ernesto Miranda at the end. And the fact that these rights are named after the perpetrator. Everybody says they should rename them.
You know, I started my career off in criminal defense, and I saw a lot of the inequality when it came to the way sometimes law enforcement deals with people. And I was fully aware of Miranda. I knew what it was all about. And it's very tough sometimes because you're trying to figure out how to get past that concept. The end justifies the mean. Yes, a horrific crime happened, but do we have rights on top of that?
Well, this was, the civil rights liberties, the ACLU, fought and put the Miranda case on top for John Flynn to go advocate for it. And of course, these rights are there for the innocent and the guilty. I mean, this is, the country that we live in. So, and ironically enough, well, I don't want to give away the story because I want people to really watch the movie. There's this huge twist about what happens at the end.
Now, you're also an acting coach, and this topic is a very difficult one. And you got to work with some fantastic actors on this movie. You know, how tough is it to separate yourself as an acting coach and a director of a film?
It's a completely different process. When I'm teaching classes, and I love to teach classes, you're passing something down to a lot of the times to a new generation of actors and teaching them how to work independently. Because when you go on set and you work with a director, there's no time to teach acting. It's more result oriented. So you want to own a craft. And I got to work with a cast and like Donald Sutherland and Andy Garcia and Kyle MacLachlan and Ryan Philippe and Luke Wilson and Dan Lauria and Mireya Nuss. I mean, the list goes on and on. And Patricia Weir was played by the incredible Abigail Breslin. So when you get to work with these actors, you're not teaching them, although, Donald Sutherland made a joke that he wanted to go back to acting school. I thought to myself, what do I tell him? Nothing. And yet, you're on set and you can offer little things here and there. And all actors are grateful for that. But I love actors. I love working with them. I love the collaboration with them. Um, it's an incredible energy that runs back and forth as you're trying to figure out how to tell the story in the best way possible.
Every director is different. Every director tries to get a shot or they stay away from it. You hear these horror stories about how, like, for example, Shelley Duvall was like tortured on The Shining and everything else like that. Have we moved away from that and tried to go into a more, let's just say, more sympathetic sets with our actors?
Well, I think the big thing that has happened in the film industry is that it's given birth to intimacy coordinators and fight, coordinators, and they're there to protect, to help, to facilitate communication between directors and actors, and they're very needed. It's a little bit controversial. Some actors feel they don't need it, and some actors feel that they're crucial to the process. For me, I mean, I've always worked with some great intimacy and fight, coordinators, and they've always helped.
When I think about what we're doing now, and I always hear about these sets that were tough, and this director was tough. I mean, is it because we didn't know better back then, or have we evolved in some way?
Well, it always starts with the top. It always starts with who's the captain of the ship. And if the director is knowledgeable and if the director creates a safe environment for their actors so they can thrive, I think that's the best result. I like a lot of harmony on my sets. I don't like yelling. I joke that I like classical music in the background and candles. I like things to be very, very calm. I don't work well if it's not calm. And I think the actors that I work with really appreciate that.
Now, I love that concept. I love the idea of trying to create an environment that works the same way I do with my set and my businesses. I try to give more than I take. And I think about, the opportunity to interview people. Who do I get? What would be my dream interview? And I've gotten a lot of those. And as a director, is there somebody out there you go, God, I'd love to get them before I'm unable to do that?
Well, I mean, so many. The list goes on and on and on. I love directors. I love actors. I love conversations like we're having about, aspects of this business and storytelling. Um, I'm immersed in it, day in and day out. I try and watch as much as possible and expose myself to different things, all in the spirit of telling wonderful stories.
A lot of times when I hear things like that, and we have a great love for our craft. And one of the things I think about sometimes is every once in a while I see somebody do something I'm doing, and it just makes me feel less. And maybe that's an ego thing, but I'm going, God, I don't know if I'll ever get to that level. Is there any time you've seen something where you just go, God, I would love to be able to do something like that? You know, I mean, not feeling less, but I mean, at the same way, go, wow, that guy was brilliant.
Well, I mean, I think when you watch brilliant filmmaking, you always aspire to raise the bar, always.
Now, there's a huge difference between directing for stage and directing for film. Um, do you find that certain actors, and I'm not going to ask who, but when you realize you go, well, that's a stage actor, and this is clearly for film. Do you ever want figure out I have to get that person there?
Well, stage is difficult. If you're an actor that is trained for the stage, you're trained to repeat over and over again and make it feel like you've never done it before, like it's the very first time that you're doing it. And you have to have a certain vitality, a certain stamina, you have to have a trained voice. Very often, actors that are able to be on stage um, excel in front of the camera. But a lot of the times the camera makes you small, so the other way around is more difficult. You have to actors that have only been trained to work in front of the camera. It's more challenging when they're working on stage because they have to open up their voice and still stay truthful. And I always equate being on stage to maybe doing a master shot. But actors think a lot, especially if they worked a lot in film and in television, you know, keeping it very intimate and doing it on close up and doing it on a medium shot, which is the size, of the frame. But I think that a lot of actors, as you see, challenge themselves and to go to New York and to work on the platform and to go to London and to go to different parts of the world. And it's challenging to do stage. But I remember, in terms of energy, you have to be sensitive. And Walter Matthau had a great quote that I've always loved. He said, when you do stage, it's like you're playing tennis. When you do movies, it's like you're playing ping pong. And when you do television, it's like you're playing marbles. And I always loved that quote.
I always when you're on a set and somebody has to act for like 30 seconds in comparison to like, doing a 3-hour play or something like that. There just seems so many differences. Now, you've been around this industry so long. I mean, your father was an agent at William Morris. You've been involved in this industry your whole life. Uh, I have a 17-year-old daughter who so badly wants to make this her life. And I never quite know what advice to give her. And I would assume somebody in your position would probably have so much better advice than I could even try.
Well, what I would say to her is study. I think that that's the key component when you're starting out your career. I see it in my son, who goes to USC, he's graduating in film and theater, and he is immersed in the storytelling. He watches literally 4 movies a day. He writes plays. Um, he's always rehearsing, always creating something. I think you have to do the research, you have to watch a lot, you have to listen, and you have to do. And you have to find a way to do all of it. But when you are 17, you're a sponge and you absorb it all. But be patient and take the time to study and learn the craft.
I do my best to try to give her that advice. And I kind of asked her the other day, I said, listen, you want to go to school. A lot of actors don't. A lot of actors take classes, they do these things, but a lot of them don't go to college. If you had to give somebody advice, hey, go to college or go with a acting teacher coach like you, what would you give them?
If you're passionate about acting and that's the only thing that you want to do, I would say, try and see if you can get into some programs, not only Yale and Juilliard, but there's some other great programs around the country for acting and in different colleges. That experience, I think, is something that is very helpful, but you don't have to go to college for acting. You can get into a great acting class and, pound the pavement and go on auditions. And absolutely, that's the other way to do it. You don't necessarily have to go to college, although it's always such a great experience that shapes, young people.
Now, Miranda's victim, that's a great story. It's a piece of our history. It's something that I'm sure when you had the opportunity, you go, wow, that's a great topic. Now, let's say somebody says, well, I'm going to give you a Marvel movie instead. How tough a decision is that for you to go, I'll do the next Spider-Man in comparison to, to tell this
No,
great story?
nothing is tough. Should I be lucky enough to be offered a Marvel movie, I would take it. I have a lot of stories that I want to tell. I'm very eclectic in my taste. Um, so I love stories, and of course, the fact that this Miranda's victim story was offered to me to direct was, a turning point in my life. I immediately saw and was fascinated by what happened. I had no idea, as many people have not had no idea about what the true story was about. And like you said, it's part of our history. And in the last 2 years that I've been involved with this project, it's never escaped me how lucky I have been and how grateful I am to have been able to tell the story.
Now, as a film creator, as a director, a lot of people don't realize that you get to do that about 10%. The other 90% is actually promotion, getting everything together. I mean, how difficult is it sometimes for you to go, okay, I've created this thing, and now I have to spend this huge amount of energy to go out and get people to see it?
I used to hate that part of it, the promotion part, and I've learned to embrace it and to love it. And again, I'm just grateful for the opportunity. I'm grateful for the opportunity to promote, to talk about the work, because if you don't, people don't know about it.
Now, a lot of people don't understand the difference between directing, cinematography. I've seen some fantastic guys behind the camera. Is there anybody that you've looked at, you've seen, you go, I would love to be able to work with this person?
I mean, actors, oh, so many. I have a list. But what happens is when you have a great cast, like my cast of Miranda's Victim, you want to work with them over and over again. It's kind of a conundrum, I have to say, because when you think of new projects you're about to do, you want to cast all the people that you know, and yet there's like a pool of actors that you haven't worked with that you're also wanting to work with.
You said something, and I think that's very important because I tried to explain that to my daughter the other day about relationships. People cast people a lot of times that they want to spend time with. If you're going to be stuck on a set for 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, you're going to want to work with people that you want to have a meal with. You want to be pleasant on the set. I mean, how important is that?
Oh, yes. I mean, you definitely want to be creative with people that you like. And sometimes you end up being stuck and being creative with people that you don't like, in which case you make the best of it.
Now, how tough is it? Because in your position, and your father was an agent, and you know what actors and everybody in this field, everyone's killing themselves to get into the industry. How tough is it for you sometimes to have to give somebody the tough news? Listen, I can't work with you. I don't have a project for you, or something like that. When these people are just they'll take anything.
Well, that, doesn't happen very often. I'm not in that position very often, but mostly, I've decided I want to work with this actor, and they're happy. Yeah, occasionally actors reach out to me and they say, what are you doing? Do you have something? But luckily, I'm not put in that position.
Now, growing up in the industry, I'm sure, since your father worked for William Morris, you had the opportunity to meet some very incredibly powerful and talented people. Do you have any memories of somebody just going, wow, that was a really cool moment I had with that person?
Oh my God, yes. Uh, so I met Julio Iglesias. I remember on tour. I remember when I was little, in another office. There was Marlena Dietrich. Um, who else? I have so many. That's a big question. Sammy Davis Jr. Some of the iconic, legendary performers I have had an honor to meet, and that's always been a highlight of my life.
I think of those and I just can't even imagine those opportunities. We have about 2 minutes left, and I want to make sure that everybody out there who wants to see this film has the opportunity to see it. And I know it's probably in the theaters, but is it also streaming on any platform?
Yes, so across the country, it's streaming on demand in four categories: in new releases, in theaters now, in top video rentals, and in dramas. And also, you can watch it on Amazon, on Vudu, and on Apple TV.
Well, I can't thank you enough for being here, Michelle. Hopefully, I'll be able to talk to you again, and I can't wait to see your next movie.
Thank you so much.